Welcome to day 228 of our Be a Better You annual challenge. Today we are talking about flip switch for emotional health and well-being. Focusing on emotional health and well-being this entire month. And today's topic is one that is near and dear to my heart. It's a tool and a technique called flip switch. I learned it from Lynn Grabhorn's book, Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting. And actually, the workbook is where I really learned the lesson on how to use this and to use it in ways that help me to choose the emotions I want to feel and experience and the energy level I want to be at in order to create the life I want, not just create by default based on whatever emotions and feelings come our way. So Lynn Grabhorn, I actually was recommended her workbook by Jim Edwards when I was on the Jim boat, I don't know, 4, 5, one of those Jim boat cruises back in the day. But it took me like a year to go through that workbook, and that's a story for another day. But one of the strategies that I took out of that, one of the tools that is still one of my favorites, is called flip switch. Now, how to use a flip switch, I'll talk about how to do that. I'll share 5 practical ways and tips and things that I've used to make it even more powerful and quicker and easier and automatic for me to use these days. I'll share some tips about that, and then I'll share just one person's story. I've got 5 here, but I'll just share one since I'm talking about myself a little bit and how I've experienced it, because I think the most powerful thing I can share is my own story and my own experience with a tool, and then other people's using it too. Because if it works for me and if it works for other people, if it works for anybody else on the planet, that means it can work for you too. So what the heck is flip switching? Flip switching is taking a negative feeling and immediately transforming it to a higher energy vibrating feeling. And we do this to reprogram our brains so that instead of operating at low energy frequencies or low frequencies more often, we operate at a higher level frequencies. Guess what? When we're in a higher energy, when we're in a better mood, we get better results in our life than when we're in a bad mood and at low energy and low frequency. I need a drink of coffee. Excuse me. It's thunderstorming here this morning, so my throat is... All right. So how do we use this tool? And I'll share and sprinkle in some of the ways that I actually learned to do it and got it to work for me. First and foremost, we notice that we're experiencing a negative feeling, right? And who doesn't do that every day? I mean, every day, once a day, at least once a day, we feel something negative. Well, we know that if we keep operating in that negative frequency, that low vibration, we're going to get pretty low results. So as soon as we notice a feeling, the next thing we want to do is we want to pause and acknowledge that we're feeling it. Without judgment, we just want to say, whoa, I'm feeling really scared right now. And we don't judge it. We just say, oh, I'm feeling really scared right now. I like to name it. So I'll notice the feeling somewhere in my body, somewhere in my, usually my body first, but I'll think it, and then I'll pause and I'll acknowledge and I'll say, okay, I'm feeling really scared right now. Then I will mentally flip the switch from, usually if I'm feeling scared or anxious about something, I will switch it to curious and excited, because curious and excited to me is the opposite of that. And I know that if I'm approaching a situation with curiosity and excitement, I'm going to get a very different result than if I'm approaching it with fear, trepidation, and being scared. So then I find ways, the step 4 is to immerse ourselves in the feeling, the positive feeling, of course. So how do I get more curious and more excited about that? I focus on good feelings that replace the negative ones by focusing on times that I've been curious in the past. I might have been a little nervous and apprehensive, but then I was curious. By getting curious and excited, I had an excellent result. Or places and things and experiences in the past that made me feel curious and excited or good and positive in any way. And then step 5 is we carry this positive feeling forward in the very next action that we take. Remember, I say never leave the scene of a decision without taking some sort of action. We're deciding to flip switch our emotion from negative to positive, and we want to reinforce that positive with the next action that we take. So what are some examples of this? Morning stress before work. Say you wake up and you had a bad dream or something and you're feeling negative in the morning. Well, if you approach your day that way, guess what? It's like when you stub your toe in the morning. You stub your toe and it negatively impacts your entire day because your brain goes on that negative train and rolls that way all day and just adds negative things and focuses on those as you go throughout your day. But if you consciously pause, flip the switch to thinking about something or somewhere that makes you feel awesome, your day is going to have a totally different take on it. I learned a long time ago, if I do stub my toe, because guess what? Sometimes that happens in the morning, right? Or if I step on something and hurt my foot, that sends negative vibrations to me, but I just stop, flip the switch, and I used to literally walk up to a light switch and flip it when I first started using this strategy, because it reminded me to consciously flip from negative to positive and then act on that positive. And sometimes just the act of physically flipping the switch was my positive reinforcement and my positive action for that change. Conflicts with a partner, rather than fixating on the argument, say we have an argument with our significant other, think about and recall the first time that you met and shared a moment of deep connection. And if you're focusing on that, and then you take your next action, you're going to take a much better action than if you're focused on the argument that you had last night. Financial worries, you can shift from imagery of unpaid bills to checks arriving in the mail. That's one right out of The Secret. Traffic frustration. I used to drive, it was an hour away from my house for corporate America. If there was no traffic, but usually if I went when there was traffic times, it could be 3 or 4 hours depending on the situation and the traffic. It's what happens in big cities. And so early on, I got frustrated in traffic, but while you're stuck in a traffic jam, close your eyes as long as it's safe and picture your favorite vacation spot. Picture a positive thing. I did this, but then using the flip switch strategy, I turned my automobile into a university on wheels. I can't remember what, motivational speaker talked about that, but I had done it before they even talked about it, because that was back in the days of cassette tapes. That's how old I am. And so I always had a pile of educational personal development or training on whatever topic I wanted to learn about for my current job or my career in the car, so that when there was traffic, I was listening to that. And by doing that, traffic didn't faze me at all. It just meant I had a little longer to focus on my personal development. Okay, I'm going to share James's story about overcoming chronic anxiety. And why am I sharing? I picked this one on purpose because I've got Transforming Relationships, David's Health Recovery, Maria's Career Breakthrough, and Alina's Financial Turnaround. And although many of us can relate to those, I think that anxiety has become permeated, at least in a couple of generations younger than me. And I find it really disturbing because the vast majority of these people are medicated. And my personal belief is that that's a bad thing. Anyway, let's talk about James's struggle with anxiety and how he used the flip switch tool to overcome it. James struggled with anxiety for most of his adult life. Traditional coping methods provided temporary relief. He journaled, he meditated, he did breathing exercises. But when he turned to the flip switch technique, he realized and used it during panic moments, switching from racing thoughts to recalling his grandfather's fishing cabin, thinking about the sound of the lake, the smell of the pine, walking through the woods down to the lake. Over time, he noticed that his anxiety episodes reduced dramatically, and he felt more control over his mental state and his emotional state. And I think that often medicine and people ourselves underestimate the power of our own ability to manage our anxiety, our stress, our feelings, because they're all feelings, right? And that we do have the power to do that. That's reflected in David's Health Recovery as well. And I have experience with that, learning that once I took control over my own health because the doctors couldn't figure it out, that's when everything changed in a positive way for me. Practical tips for mastering flip switching. I've used all of these and they've all worked for me. Number one, prepare your positive imagery bank in advance. So it's like having a story inventory. I don't know if I've talked about that or not yet, but I have an entire notebook full of different stories that I can tell if I want to share and teach about a different topic. Flip switch, we want to have a list at least of positive experiences, positive emotions that we want to switch to when we observe ourselves having a negative experience and negative emotions. We want to use sensory detail, just like we want to beef up our visualizations of what we want with all of our senses. We want to do the same thing with positive emotions and positive feelings. So as we're flip switching, we have a bank of imagery, and that includes our senses, our different senses. Practice at neutral times. Practice when you're not in a really negative feeling place. For a few months, I would practice every morning when I woke up. I would just practice flip switching. No matter, even if I woke up in a great mood, I would practice visualizing and preparing positive imagery stories to switch from negative emotions to positive. Just when, I was fine, but I wanted to have it so that it was a tool that I could instantly call upon when I needed it. You can also anchor it physically. Some people will do a touch. They'll touch their heart. They'll tap their head. Whatever works for you. I just tap my heart once, and that helps me to anchor physically the positive emotions that I want, because most of them come from my heart. And then stay consistent. Emotionally reprogramming is the most effective way that you can repetitively create the responses that you want yourself and maintain a higher energy level that I know of. I'm sure there's other ones that experts know, but I'm not an expert. I only know what works on me. All right, so what are we going to do today? We're going to practice flip switching. If you've never done it before, I guarantee you are going to be excited once you practice this a little bit and realize how powerful it is. Do what works for you. Like I said, I used to actually physically walk over to a light switch and turn it up or down, depending on the direction it was, to actually remind myself mentally, physically, and to anchor it. Well, I'm not always where I could have a switch that I could turn on or off. So that's when I started to anchor it on my body, just by tapping my heart. All right, any questions? Hit me up and ask. Otherwise, have an awesome day. See how powerful this tool is for you. And let me know in the comments below. Have a great day, and I'll, of course, be with you tomorrow.